Navarro versus Elon Musk, a sharp skirmish over India, and let's get a fact checks and who writes the narrative. Namaskar, you are watching The Global Eye with me, Mousumi. A fresh public spat erupted on X platform known as Twitter, between former Trump advisor Peter Navarro and X platform owner Elon Musk after Navarro posted a claim criticizing India's purchases of Russian oil, which X's crowdsourced fact-checking system flagged as misleading. Navarro accused Indian special interest of interfering and slammed the note as crap. Musk countered, saying, "On this platform, the people decide the narrative," and stressed that community notes corrects everyone. The exchange has become a lightning rod for debates about misinformation, platform power, political messaging, and US-India relations. Now, if you check the timeline, how we got here. Navarro posted accusations that India was buying Russian oil solely to profiteer, linking those purchases to US job losses and strategic risk. X's community notes attached a correction, calling the claim misleading and adding context on global energy market dynamics. Now, Navarro reacted angrily, calling the note crap and accusing Indian special interest of interfering in US debate. Musk responded publicly, defending community notes and X's AI Grok, G-R-O-K, which we are aware of it now, stressing that the platform lets people decide the narrative and makes no exceptions. India's Ministry of External Affairs, MEA, dismissed Navarro's statements as inaccurate and misleading, keeping its response measured, but yes, of course, firm. Now, what Navarro actually said and the factual problem. Navarro claimed India had not purchased Russian oil before the Ukraine invasion and now does so only to profiteer, implying that India was aiding Russia's war effort for financial gain. Community Notes contributors flagged the statement as oversimplified, pointing out that India's energy policy is driven by security, pricing arbitrage, and pre-existing trade patterns. They also highlighted that the US itself continues to import certain Russian origin commodities, making Navarro's rhetoric misleading. This resulted in an annotated fact check attached to his post. Now, why Navarro is attacking India? His reading motive and strategy. Navarro's attack reflects his political playbook, economic nationalism, and hardline trade policy. By branding India as a profiteer, he signals toughness to a domestic audience that supports tariffs, aims to justify punitive trade measures, and attempts to cast India's Russia relationship in a negative light. The intention is to rally domestic sentiment around protectionism and portray the US as a victim of unfair global practices. Navarro's comments are less about facts and more about shaping perceptions to push his trade agenda. The critique of Navarro, why many see this as irresponsible, rather inaccuracy. Navarro's sweeping claim ignored the complexity of India's energy security concerns as well as the global realities of oil trade. And his inflammatory language, his rhetoric, including invoking cultural tropes, shifts the focus from policy to provocation. That's damaging his credibility and risking diplomatic friction. If you want to study the strategic myopia, publicly demonizing a strategic partner undermines US diplomatic leverage. India has worked hard to maintain ties with both Russia and the US, and inflammatory attacks could push it closer to other global powers like China or Russia, and it's happening. The picture is clear. And how Elon Musk fact-checked Navarro, the mechanics and Musk defense. X used its community notes feature a transparent crowdsourced system that allows users to provide context to fact check Navarro's claim. Musk defended the decision, emphasizing transparency and neutrality and stating that people decide the narrative rather than a central authority. He highlighted that the system applies to everyone equally, reinforcing X's image as a platform for open dialogue rather than one-sided censorship. India's official response, India's Ministry of External Affairs publicly rejected Navarro's comments as inaccurate and misleading, as I told earlier. Now, New Delhi avoided direct escalation, instead focusing on setting the record straight and defending its energy policy decisions. India's approach signals its intent to maintain diplomatic composure while continuing to protect its global image and strategic interest. Now, where President Donald Trump fits in? The US political context. The spat unfolds amid fluctuating US-India relations. While Navarro pushes a confrontational stance, President Trump has alternated between criticism and praise, recently calling Prime Minister Modi a great leader and expressing confidence in US-India friendship. This duality reflects Washington's broader struggle, balancing protectionist rhetoric for domestic audiences while keeping India close as a key partner in global strategy. Now, what this fight means, short and medium term implications. For US-India diplomacy, Navarro's inflammatory comments may complicate ongoing trade and strategic talks, potentially driving India to hedge further with other partners that we can see now. For platform governance, Elon Musk's defense of community notes illustrates the power shift from traditional moderation to crowdsourced accountability. This raises questions about bias accuracy and who controls the narrative. And for US politics, Navarro's remarks appeal to a protectionist base but risk alienating allies and adding volatility to global diplomacy. And if you see the final assessment, who's right and who wins? Factually, Navarro's statement was oversimplified and inaccurate. India's measured rebuttal and community notes corrections demonstrate the power of decentralized fact-checking to hold high-profile figures accountable. Musk emerges with credibility for enforcing platform neutrality, while Navarro scores points with his domestic audience but risks US diplomatic capital in the long run. And now, we must ask, does inflammatory rhetoric strengthen domestic standing at the expense of global partnerships? And is that a trade-off the US can afford? Are crowdsourced fact-checking systems like community notes a robust answer to misinformation or just another battleground for influence? In an age of rapid political tone shifts, what role should career diplomats play in stabilizing alliances like US-India relations? Can punitive tariffs or moralistic attacks actually influence a country's energy policies, or do they accelerate moves toward strategic autonomy? Now, who should ultimately define truth on global platforms? Platform owners, independent experts, governments, or the public? Think about it. For more updates and insights, keep watching The Global Eye.